So let's talk about the difference between receiving bare minimum in a relationship and being in a unfulfilling relationship. So I think this topic is really important because there's not much information out there, and we hear a lot of different school of thoughts around this topic. There's also different trends on social media, in public spaces, different movement that have taken place those past years. In terms of women's empowerment, we've heard, a lot of words such as high value women, how to become a high value woman, how to attract, a quote unquote high value partner, how to attract, abundance in relationships in terms of the way we're being treated. How can we attract a partner that is, respectful and showers us with love as we deserve it? And so there's many different school of thoughts again, but not much information about understanding, what is actually bare minimum, and a lot also of different, trends put in the light or in the front scene certain things that we should look out, for a partner, and it's not always clear. Some will say, well, they need to provide for everything. Some will say they shouldn't have to provide for everything, but they should be extremely generous, but we've seen also people who in the public I've been in providing relationships with partners who were providing, who ended up being in abusive relationships. Then on the other side, we have to be independent, have our own money, not really care too much about, emotions in relationships, to be actually happy in relationships. Some have taken the tangent of not being at all about intimacy in relationships and just being about being provided for. Like, there's so many different school of thoughts and trends and movements right now that I feel it's really needed to do a video to clarify everything from a therapist point of view, but also as a married woman, a woman who's happy in a relationship, and someone who's have experienced different stages in relationships, and also experienced neglect in relationship and abuse. And this is also a question that I've been asked often, from clients, but also women around me, and also a question I've asked myself on my own journey, honestly. So I wanted to do this video to clarify this for you today. So first of all, to make sure we're all on the same page, what is bare minimum? So from my perspective and from a therapist perspective, bare minimum in a relationship is, relates to having the foundation to create a relationship, having the right foundations to create intimacy in a relationship, to nurture the connection, and to be able to build from there. So that's what bare minimum would mean from a psychological perspective, if I had to translate that into with psychology knowledge and human behavior from a place of psychology. So with that being said, what creates the right foundations for a relationship to grow and blossom includes, and create intimacy, includes affection, communication, vulnerability, and honesty, transparency. So those are the 5 components that I would put in, quote unquote bare minimum in a relationship for it to work out. Those are 5 components that are very important, right? And when those 5 components are not met in a relationship, that's when the signs of being in unfulfilling relationships are going to start, arising. And the following are signs to look out for when you're in a relationship, that indicates that oftentimes that you're in a unfulfilling relationship and that the bare minimum is not met, meaning you're either dealing with someone who's abusive, either dealing with someone who's avoidant, has a avoidant personality, and has intimacy issues, which means that you're dealing with a personality that is not here for growth, because relationships are here for growth. Both are meant to grow together, and you are not dealing with a personality that is suited and has the emotional capacity for growth in a relationship, aka create intimacy over time and deepen the connection with you. And so those are the signs that are going to show that you're not dealing with the right partner, and you are not dealing with someone who is willing to offer bare minimum but is withholding bare minimum from you. Whether that is consciously or unconsciously doesn't matter. You know, some will do it consciously because they're an abuser and they enter relationship for different reasons and without good intentions, but for the sake of control, but not to grow intimacy at all. Or some people are impaired, unconsciously impaired, and so don't have enough self-awareness to reflect on their behavior, go to therapy, or do the right inner work to overcome their limitations. And so there are people who are not self-aware enough to be conscious about their behavior, so they act unconsciously and they are not seeing clearly about their behavior, so they are in denial of their behavior. So usually those types of partners are going to shut you down or gaslight you, not necessarily consciously, but because they believe in their truth and their perspective, and they're not seeing their impaired emotional capacity for relationships. They have limited emotional capacity and they have intimacy issues. So one of the signs that you're dealing with someone who's withholding bare minimum from you and that you're in an unfulfilling relationship is that your self-esteem is getting lower and starting to decline in this relationship over time. You feel that you're alone in the relationship. There's sadness starts creeping in, depression starts creeping in, and for some reason, sometimes we're not even aware that we're not in a fulfilling relationship, but your self-esteem is starting to decline. And that is explained because the more you're exposed to someone who is withholding bare minimum from you and the foundation of a relationship from you, the more your self-esteem is going to decline, because subconsciously the message you're giving to yourself by staying in a relationship where the foundation are not giving to you is, I am not worthy of bare minimum. And so the longer you stay in a relationship like that, the more you're exposed to neglect, to abuse, whatever it is that you're dealing with. And so the more you're at least exposed to neglect, the more this is going to impact your self-esteem. You can be the most confident person, is going to impact your self-esteem. If you stay and keep taking a poison, you're going to end up dying, So it's like you're poisoning yourself. So when you're dealing with, again, in an unfulfilling relationship, sometimes we underestimate the impact of a relationship where we're unfulfilled, because, we're thinking, well, I'm not being abused, but actually you're being neglected, and it's as hurtful as being abused. Obviously, abuse is more dangerous, is more serious, and needs to be addressed. But neglect, don't underestimate the impact of neglect in a relationship on someone's self-esteem. It creates deep scars as well. So that's why self-esteem is declining, because you're exposing yourself to that pain, to that neglect, to that abuse, because neglect is a form of abuse. And so what you're receiving as a message is, I am not worthy of more than this. And the more you stay, the more this is what you're integrating subconsciously. And that's why your self-esteem is declining. So that's it. That's why also you feel lonely. You feel that you're alone in your relationship. You feel like, it's like kind of this weight that you're feeling constantly of just feeling very lonely in your relationship. Another sign, and a very important sign, that you are not in a fulfilling relationship, that's your partner is withholding, consciously or unconsciously, bare minimum from you, and the foundations for a happy relationship and to create intimacy in relationship and just the foundation of a romantic relationship, is that the same issue keeps arising. So relationship, as I previously said, are about growth. And when someone is withholding, bare minimum from you, you're dealing with someone who's not here to grow with you, but is here with, out of codependency, desire to control or abuse someone, but is not here for the right reason in the relationship with you in the first place. And so the same issue that, is supposed to be overcome, because in relationships sometimes we can face some issues or need to realign with each other. That's common in really healthy relationships. But those things, challenges in relationships that are in the nature of, getting to know each other, but also reflecting that, both will reflect on their behavior, adapt to each other, grow together. Those are meant to happen in a relationship in that sense. But in your relationship, you keep facing a huge issue that you don't seem to be able to overcome with your partner. You have tried to communicate with them several times about it, and it's just the same issue keeps coming over and over. There's no change of behavior from your partner. You experience either a partner, if they're abusive or very defensive, that had shut you down, gaslight you, and got extremely aggressive. So that would be the case if they're abusive. Your partner gets aggressive with you when you try to raise that question and try to communicate to them. They get into very defensive, and or they start becoming aggressive, which is a sign of dealing with an abusive partner and a sign of domestic violence. Or you have spoke about that to your partner, but they found some excuses, and then they give you breadcrumbs, but the issue remained the same. In that case, I want to emphasize on that it's still a manipulation tactic. You might still be dealing with an abuser, or a avoidant partner who is unconsciously manipulating you, but still it's manipulation. And so you received breadcrumbs, so like some form of solution to make you not talk too much about it anymore, to kind of make you stop talking about the issue, because you can see that your partner is making an effort on some level. But there's still this huge elephant in the room with your partner's huge problem still remaining there, that has never been addressed, still there, still remaining there, and no one is talking about it, basically, right? And you feel even guilty in that situation because your partner gave you some level of solution, and oftentimes those types of partner who are manipulating consciously or unconsciously are usually, you're going to feel like they're doing their max. Like, you are going to feel like they cannot offer more. You're going to see them tired. They're going to act all tired, as if they're making so much effort in this relationship. They might even tell you, you're never happy. You're never, like, it's never enough what I'm doing. But that, I want to emphasize on this, really important, that's manipulation. That's manipulation. It's either someone who's consciously manipulating you or unconsciously, but in all cases, doesn't matter. It is manipulation, and you're not asking for too much. They are either manipulating you and trying to shut you up, or they are unaware that they have a lot of emotional struggles that prevents them from creating healthy relationships, and they're not self-aware enough to realize that. So they project that on you. They feel like it's never enough what they're offering, when they need to address, they have deep emotional issues that prevents them to offer bare minimum in a relationship, which is absolutely expected from someone in a relationship, and it's not too much asked, right? So the elephant in the room, you keep having the same issue in your relationship that keep arising, no matter if your partner gave you breadcrumbs of solution. The elephant is still in the fucking room. So in result of that, you might feel as well some level of frustration. Sometimes in relationships like that, you know, we're going to experience like our body is going to start rejecting our partner because we are being neglected again. So you're going to feel anger, frustration about them. You're going to have a harder time to tolerate. You're going to start feeling like you cannot tolerate their presence, because every time they're around you, it reminds you that there's a big elephant in the room that they don't want to address, and so resentment starts building up. And at the same time, when you're dealing with a partner who's giving you breadcrumbs and using that manipulation tactic, you end up feeling also some level of guilt because you feel like you're asking from them too much, and they look so tired, they look so, you know, exhausted. Sometimes it can be legitimate, they're actually exhausted, but they have to address their issues and their avoidant personality. So being tired without offering bare minimum shows that you have intimacy issues, and that you need to work on yourself, and you need to address those things. And you're dealing on your side with someone who is choosing to, to project that on you. So you're being manipulated unconsciously by the person, but you're still being manipulated because the person is not being honest with themselves. They're hiding things as well, and they're not honest with you. That's what happens often with cheaters as well. So you feel some level of guilt, but at the same time you're between like you want to confront them and say I'm sick and tired of your bullshit, and at the same time you start kind of pitying them. But when you start pitying your spouse or your partner in a relationship, that something is off in a relationship. You shouldn't be, no one should put you in a position where you pity them and you let them neglect you out of pity. That shouldn't happen. That's not healthy. So that's really something that is important to realize. So when you're starting, oftentimes we kind of catch ourselves when we're in that frustration or guilt and we cannot really pinpoint what's happening, but there's such deep things happening underneath, and basically usually we're experiencing neglect. That's why we're in this position and this turmoil and confusion, because bare minimum is not being offered, is being withheld from us, and that is creating a lot of internal chaos for the partner on the receiving end of that, right? So as you can see, receiving bare minimum is not necessarily about the external things, what you're receiving on Valentine's Day, what they're doing from an external point of view. There's a lot of people who are in unfulfilling relationships, but so not receiving the bare minimum for growth in a relationship, but from an external point of view, they might look like the perfect couple. So the external point of view has nothing to do with how you're experiencing the relationship. And what is most important in a relationship is how you feel in the relationship. What is going to guide you to be in a happy and healthy relationship and fulfilled and nurtured and adored and valued the way you deserve is going to be about how you feel in the relationship. Doesn't matter what the person does in terms of seduction, or if they're offering you beautiful roses on Valentine's Day or making big gestures, and if on a daily basis they're not committed to growth with you, and you're struggling with the same issues, or your self-esteem is also declining, it is not worth it to stay in a relationship like that, because that really type of relationship is just draining, and that drains the life force out of you, and that's why it creates a lot of chaos internally but also externally in your life. Relationships, again, romantic relationship, have a huge impact on your well-being and on your overall well-being. It can have an impact on your physical health, so it's really important to understand that there are foundations to relationship, and that you deserve to be given those foundations and to have a partner who wants to grow with you. You're deserving of that. It's the foundations of relationships. It's the bare minimum.